Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 6, Episode 5. It's called Schisms. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. This one's got a bit of an eerie mystery to it. Riker's, to start off with, is having trouble sleeping. It feels like he's losing time. And then there's other weird anomalies around the ship, which leads to characters reacting very emotionally and erratic to like little details, and then it kind of goes down to an interesting path, which I don't know if I necessarily saw it going down when the episode started, so that was intriguing. And yeah, so we'll get into it, but I'll ask the question. Connor, what did you think of Schisms?
Yeah, I was quite into it, actually. I thought it was very unique for this show, and kind of the tone that it struck, especially in the back half of the episode.
Yeah, I quite liked it as well. I liked how sort of dark and eerie it kind of felt once it sort of started to reveal what was really going on.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting to me is that I just on the Ace last month watched Fire in the Sky for the first time, and there's a lot of, because that's like an alien abduction movie, right? That movie's about someone being abducted out of a spaceship, and it's got a very famous sequence where you kind of finally see towards the end of the film like what might have happened when someone was abducted. And it was hard not to think of that a little bit when certain scenes were playing out. And I can't help but feel, given when this probably, I'm going to check the original air date in a second, but that movie came out in 1993, so this might actually be just after it, like in terms of influence.
Close, yeah.
So I'm going to check.
Like I say, it's an alien abduction movie. Ultimately this episode, but it has a significantly more of a horror angle on it than I think I expected once we started establishing that's what we were doing, because it does like really plays it up quite horrifically.
There's a creepy vibe to it, because obviously it doesn't sort of play it as like people don't even know they've been taken at first, and then you sort of reveal gradually throughout the episode that people are going somewhere. That's that. I mean, you have to establish that first, and it's once that's established it starts to get quite creepy. But even before that, it is an interesting mystery, because a lot of the things, they feel very separate and they feel very random almost, like all these different things that people are experiencing.
And then you learn details like Riker's had his arm, well, at least like his forearm removed and then reattached.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is kind of extreme, and I think there are two standout scenes though in terms of the horror of it, and it's the recreation of the group recreating kind of where they've been, and then the scene where Riker's actually there.
Well, that's the scene. I mean, the recreation scene is the scene where you realize they're actually going somewhere, because I think up until that point it's left a bit more like, oh, they're just reacting to something, they're having dreams or whatever. And then that scene kind of like, wait, no, they've all been to the same place. They've all went somewhere. And I just checked. Interestingly, this came out before Fire in the Sky. Fire in the Sky was 1993. This came out, this aired originally October 1992. So it's very close though. I mean, if nothing else, you can definitely see that alien abduction was a very zeitgeisty thing. I mean, when we reviewed that on the Ace, we talked about how between the X-Files and shows that were about like paranormal investigations, those were huge in the 90s. So it's very of its time in terms of that. It's just interesting that maybe one of the most...
What that was a cultural reaction to, because like there's a lot of the trends that I can place specifically as like, I know what they were afraid of. But I don't know off the top of my head what alien abduction...
Is it because the Cold War ended, like officially, with the fall of the wall, and then they had to move on to like, well, threats could come from somewhere unknown now?
No, it could be part of it, yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just thinking like you've got things like all the vampire movies in the 80s is directly tied to AIDS, right? That fear there. There's a lot of like those sort of big trends in especially in like genre stuff that you can kind of really easily parallel. And I don't know what this one is specifically, but I mean maybe that's just me having a blind spot in the 90s.
I wonder if it's just one of those reality based like shows that was investigating things that just became such a hit that it just had a knock-on effect where it became more of a cultural consciousness thing. And,
it could be, yeah.
And then by the time you have X-Files being one of the biggest shows on the planet, you know,
definitely.
all that stuff just kind of adds up, and then you're kind of at a point. But it's definitely a very 90s thing. And what I liked about that movie is that it did treat it as a scary, traumatic experience. And I think this episode does it. And because obviously Star Trek's already in space, we already deal with aliens, we already deal with spaceships, it has its own spin on how it's happening. It's not, a beam of light. Well, I mean, it's kind of a beam of light, but it's not a beam of light in the sky pulling them up. It's it's aliens from another dimension, another universe that basically Geordi has accidentally created, or at least let the aliens discover a potential way to come into our universe through because he's doing like a sort of trick with like improving their sensors or something like that, and this reading sort of creates kind of a gateway that these aliens can then sort of like come through. I mean, they don't come through themselves. It's kind of established by the end of the episode is that they can't exist in our world. It'll kill them, but they can take people from the Enterprise's world into theirs. And it turns out that's actually what's happening to Riker, is like, because he thinks he's just having trouble sleeping, where he's not getting a lot of sleep. It turns out he's been taken and returned, and it's shown really well where, after he's had a rough day, he's been tired all day, finally goes to his bed again. He's taken this recommendation from Crusher. It's this milk concoction to like help him sleep, and he thinks he's just laying down. And he's asked Geordi to come wake him up at 7 because he's like, I've been having trouble getting up, so come and get me, make sure I get up. And he's like, what are you doing here, Geordi? He's like, oh, it's 7. And he's like, what? I just lay down.
Can't possibly be 7.
Yeah. So this idea...
I get that. I feel that sometimes.
Oh, yeah, I get that too. And I don't think there's any abductions going on.
I mean, who can know for sure?
But and Data's losing time at one point, and Data like confirms beyond a shadow of a doubt, because he leaves a trail that can be sensed, that he can look for. He confirms that for about 90 minutes he was not on the ship, and that's when it's like, oh, what's going on now? And because
it's interesting because they point out that it might not be malicious, they might not be evil, even though they're being abducted, right? Which sounds bad. They point out they could be just learning in the same way the Enterprise is, potentially. Maybe wiping the memories in the way they do. I think
it's a nice thought to have that, but they clearly don't really care about the well-being of their subjects, because one of them does die, and Riker, the final sort of moment that we end on this sort of ambiguous, creepy note is Riker saying, given what they were doing to us and how little they seem to care, like, what they were doing was not just curiosity. It felt, implying it was malicious in some way.
Yeah,
and you definitely get that vibe, but I think that's cool that we do get to have a.
I don't know if this returns, but at the end, there's something comes through, and they're like, well, maybe it's a probe, maybe it's something that we don't know what it is.
So it's funny. I think it works either way. I think if it does show up again and it's a cool episode, I'll be glad they followed up on this tease at the end. But if they never address it, I'll actually be kind of glad it was left to just be open for the ambiguous creepiness of it.
It works. It works as it is. And me saying I hope they follow up on it and address that is more just because I enjoyed this and would like more.
Yeah, I like a lot of the mystery stuff early on. We have Worf kind of like reacting when he goes to get a haircut, and he's like freaking out at the scissors. The one I liked the most though was Riker's, actually, because there's something just so, I think, especially because at least with scissors, it's like you can sort of read the moment as, oh, Worf is like seeing it as a weapon, because theoretically, if someone was trying, I mean, the barber's obviously innocent, but let's say he was an assassin, the scissors would be a way he could kill him. So he's like, you could sort of read it as like for some reason he feels unsafe and he sees danger. But Riker just like has this moment where he starts just caressing the top of the computer and on the bridge. And he starts kind of just having this weird out of body little moment where he's just like freaked out by something
really creepy.
Normal. Yeah, it works really well. It feels, and he explains this to Troy in 10 Forward, and she's like, you're the third person who's told me like a similar story today of just feeling this weirded out. And it turns out, and I was actually thinking, because there's a random like fourth person, because it's this Geordi, it's Worf, and it's Riker, and then there's this woman, this just new person that I thought, maybe she'll be important, or she'll have like a big like death or something later because she's new, and she never did. But she's in this scene, and she's also in Data's poetry reading early on. She's in the crowd for that. And they made enough point of focus on her and the reactions that I thought, oh, she's clearly like a side character this episode, and I guess she kind of was, but it was
Not
very
to
much
the extent that you'd expect.
Yeah, maybe she'll like pop up and die in a future episode. Maybe they're intelligently seeding her for a death
maybe
later on.
They've done it before.
But and they start talking about, okay, well, yeah, these weird little moments. It's like, well, I feel it's like a cold surface, and I remember a cold surface, and then someone else says something, and like, oh, this is all
they play off each other. I think the moment where it gets really creepy for me, or the thing that kind of sells it is, there's whispering, and it's that other woman was like, no, not whispering, clicking, and that really quite alien kind of insect sort of clicking sound kind of comes in. Yeah,
which we get to hear later on when we actually see Riker go, because they go to the holodeck, and the plan is just to sort of try and recreate whatever it is, and it's like, okay, give us a table, because that's what we're describing. And it gives first it asks a bunch of questions, like specify what type of table you want. It's like, just that's the wooden table, god damn it. And it's like, no, it wasn't wood, it was cold, it was like metallic, so it turns out metal. And all these little details, they keep adding details as they go.
Yeah, like they go, okay, right, we know Worf had a thing with scissors, so let's add scissors. And it's like, no, it's not scissors, one of them was curved.
Yeah.
The other one was serrated.
It builds an image, and it's like, I did think the computer made a bit of a leap when they said it was at an incline, and because I would say what it replaces it with was not really a table, it was more of an actual piece of apparatus. But it's a minor quibble. It's the closest thing the computer could think of, I guess, to what it was describing.
It went to table, incline, because tables are typically flat.
Yeah.
And the only ones that kind of really aren't, potentially, that have that kind of maneuverability tend to be operating tables.
Sure, yeah, sure.
So
sure.
That's the link. I assume that's the logic link in the computing.
I guess for me, I would have just liked them to say, well, maybe it wasn't quite a table. Because I don't know if I'd call it a table, per se. I'd say it's more of a bed or a.
Yeah, but operating table. By definition,
sure.
Like, in the name, right?
Sure. I think my favorite part of this, though, is not even in the scene itself. It's the fact that when we see what it actually looks like later, I like that it doesn't match it. I was worried that when we were going to see it, it was going to be the exact same table, and the computers picked the exact right thing. I love that. No, they approximated it, and where they had the blades was right, but the actual thing holding the blade was a little different looking. I like that it was different.
It was close enough that it's like, they were like, no, this is. We've been here. This is close enough to our perception of our kind of subconscious memories that, this works, but it's not exactly right.
And credit, because one of the things we said about Time Zero Part 1 is we loved the scene where Data was seeing all this alien shit, but we weren't, and he was describing it, it was super creepy. I think I'll give this some credit because, it hinted at all this creepy stuff, and then when Riker actually went, and he was lying there, and Crusher's giving him a drug to sort of counteract their sedative so he can actually sort of experience it and look around, and he's got a computer, you've got a tricorder on him to take readings and help them shut their thing, because there's also a ticking time bomb element where the rift is growing, and it's going to eventually destroy the ship if they don't close it. So there's that going on as well. But he's there, and he's pretending to be lying there asleep, but he's looking around, and he's seeing these aliens clicking around, and they're just going about their business, and they don't seem to care about anything. And it's one of the things that made Fire in the Sky really great, is that the aliens in that didn't give a shit. They clearly, this was just them doing their job. They did not care about the subjects on the table. This was animal testing where they don't give a shit about the animals kind of thing. And so, like I say, I love that it didn't match exactly what they created in the holodeck, but it did feel creepy. And I think what I really liked about it as well in the build up to it is when they're sitting formulating their plans, and they're saying, we need to try and shut this thing, and it keeps taking people. One of them's basically dead or almost dead. I love that, Riker's they've came for me every night the past few nights, so we can use that. Let's, have me smuggle something in to get the readings made. And someone says, but that sounds really dangerous. Is that too risky? And Riker just, hits back with, they're going to come and take me, whether I want to or not. This is not about me giving permission for them to take me. This is about me saying, we have to take advantage of the fact that they're going to take me. I love the fact that he doesn't have a choice in it. It's just going to happen anyway.
Yeah, I think part of the risk assessment as well is the stimulant that they're using. It's too much of that might just, kill you anyway.
Well, that came after, yeah. That was a new risk on top of it.
Yeah, and he was just I'm still willing to take the risk.
Aye, well, I mean, at this point, if he doesn't, the whole ship might just implode or whatever. So, like,
well, that's the thing. They can always just close the rift either way, right? They know that, but they want to know what's going on a bit more.
no, I think they need his readings as well. Like, they had to get readings from him.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, they needed because they needed to figure out which basically the coordinates in subspace, because it was like subspace particles that was creating this rift, and there's so many places you can go in subspace, so they needed to like use him as like a tether to like, okay, this is the one, and
you're right. Yeah,
then we can close it. So so there was like a necessity to do it as well anyway, but like Picard makes it clear, like, you know, we'll wait as long as possible, and you know, Riker does have to sort of just grab the other you know, officer who's like lying on the table asleep and just jump out the portal before it closes, because that was like the only chance they had. I love how freaked out he is by it by the end, though. I think it really sells the creepiness, and kind of like, yeah, there's this threat from someone, and it's not necessarily the most dangerous. Like, in a one-on-one fight, if they did exist in the same universe, like, are they more dangerous than the Borg? Are they more dangerous than the Romulans? Maybe, maybe not. Like, we don't really know. I wouldn't say it tries to sell us that they are. It's more just the creepiness of they're coming and taking us when we don't notice it, and it's this really creepy kind of like unknown aspect.
And there's also, okay, well, if they're learning this much, that might make them potentially more dangerous.
True, yeah. And the idea as well, they think that the reason why the rift's getting bigger is because they're trying to make it bigger so they can create their own little pocket dimension or pocket inner dimension so that they can like exist in a bubble.
Yeah, I kind of got it as like an airlock, sort of thing. So like a little airlock room where, okay, they can come in, they can exist in this area, you know, it's kind of safe.
Yeah, because they said they kind of made one for their patients on that Earth so that they could work on them and send them back. And yeah, you know, it is really creepy, the idea that someone's cut off your arm and reattached it. And even if it's perfect and you don't know it's been happened, the fact that you just have been told that it's happened, forever you're just going to be looking at your arm going like, oh, is my arm feeling weird? Is it? Like, you know, it's never going to feel the same.
The direction as well in that you know, final sequence is really, you know, when Riker's like strapped down on the table.
Oh yeah.
And you know, the camera, it does that kind of obvious thing in these scenes, you know, that you've seen elsewhere, where it does, you know, the quick cuts of the camera, the low angles, kind of, you know, from the side, you know, Riker as he turns his head to look around, the camera snaps around with it.
Yeah, a lot of low angles,
really effective
because it mimics Riker's, you know, point of view, obviously, because he's lying on this table. Yeah, really good stuff. I was pleasantly, I mean, not that I was expecting a bad episode or anything. Like, it sounded promising enough from the description.
Yeah, and like the first like 15 minutes was perfectly fine. Like, it was a perfectly solid, you know, mystery kind of, but they can go good or bad, as we've seen a lot on this show. You know, the setup can be fine, and it's just where it goes after that. I don't think I expected it to go quite this unique for this show, and you know, and going quite the angle that it did. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I don't think this show often feels creepy, but this had a nice creepy vibe to it the more it went on, which is nice. It kind of expands just the versatility that this show's had in terms of it can do some great humor episodes, it can do some great adventurous episodes, it can do, obviously, our favorite thing about the show is when it does you know, moral moral, you know, questions and debates. Like, that's our favorite type of episode. And it's not the, I mean, I would say the Borg, especially in their first appearance, were creepy in their own way, but it was a different type of creepy to this. So but no,
and last thing, I wouldn't want every episode to be this.
Oh,
it would
no,
lose its charm. It would lose its, you know, standout quality if it was.
Yeah, of course.
But this is probably pretty memorable because there aren't many truly creepy episodes of this show, so I think this one will stick out in our minds a little bit more than some of the others, even other good episodes that have other episodes that are similar to it.
Joe, it's funny, there's a weird kind of like meta thing that I was feeling early in the episode, and it's just a simple little thing, but so Riker, he's late for his first meeting of the day, and he runs in because he slept in, and like the hair and makeup have messed up his hair, so it looks like he's a bit disheveled and whatever. And occasionally he's yawning, occasionally he's rubbing his eyes, or, you know, just doing little things to show that he's tired, right? And it was this little moment where I sort of thought to myself, I'm like, this is actually pointing out how unnatural it is that no one ever does this on TV, because in real life, most people for a little bit in the morning will still do it. Maybe not as much as he's playing it up because he's doing it constantly because he's really selling that he's like shattered, but it's not weird in the first few hours of the day to see people have a little yawn, rub their eye, just little imperfections.
I assume that's selling us on the fact that these are all like, not even just like the bridge crew, but everyone there
as a professional
has gone through like professional training. They've gone through the academy, and they get up 2 or 3 hours before their shift starts, so they're prepared for the day and alert. They've had their caffeine. They're not waiting for it to kick in 2 hours into the shift like the rest of us.
It's almost just pointed out, especially. I mean, I think it's something that you see in a lot of shows, just because you don't necessarily want to see people do these little things unless it actually adds to what they're trying to tell you about the character. But it just kind of like felt weird for a second. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen him. Like, his hair's always immaculate.
I bet you see it in Twin Peaks. As such that like,
oh, there's a lot of waking up in the morning.
Right. It's very much that just naturalistic kind of reality quality that Lynch loves to just like make everything else feel weirder.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And if maybe that little extra slice of life, making it more normal, is what makes the rest of it creepier. Because when you get to the creepier stuff, they've been more kind of human about everything else, in that weird little way. It's a small thing, but it was just something I was thinking about. I mean, it's kind of a separate thing, and I'm not sure. Maybe you can have a theory as to how thematically it ties into the episode, but I didn't really quite connect Data's little poetry session and the sort of follow-up conversation he has with Geordi into the themes of the episode. And I'm not necessarily complaining, because the poetry session itself is there to show Riker how much he's struggling, right? So
I think it would be fine if you didn't have the follow-up conversation. I think that implies that there has to be a link. Otherwise, you just have it be the amusing cold open, Data doesn't get something quite right again.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I can really think of it is that obviously Data in doing poetry and all the other things we've seen him do is he's always on a quest to understand and be more human, understand the art. That's why he likes art, and he pursues it. And Geordi, when he's critiquing it, says, look, it was very clever. You had a lot of like clever little haikus and things in there. Like, it was very mechanically, because he's an android, very mechanically sound. You've clearly studied what makes a poem work, and you've done it, but you've done it in a very robotic way. The human feeling's kind of missing, and the advice he gives him is like, try and think a bit more like what you're trying to actually say to someone and get that feeling across, and that's maybe a little bit more important than the actual technical qualities. And the only thing I can really think of, if I'm trying to throw out a theory, is that these aliens that are looking at us, like they're not looking at the human like personal qualities of Earth, and they're just coldly taking people and doing science.
That was kind of the angle I was going to go down as well. Not that I really thought about that hard, but since you pressed, I would have gone with, the word I probably would use is clinical.
Yeah.
Because Data is very clinical in his poetry. Yes, it all makes sense. I think the aliens are very clinical. Like I say, it's lab work, right? It doesn't feel like they're passionately learning or anything like that. It's just going through the motions. Like, yep, ticking boxes. We'll run this test next. It's very. That was the feeling I got from them anyway.
And arguably, you could say what's the point of making that comparison? And perhaps the point is the ending is that there's a clear difference that Data never feels malicious. Data never feels, even if he gets it wrong and he kind of like messes it up, Data is always seeking knowledge in a very good faith way. He's always very good spirited, I suppose, I don't know what you want to call it. But when Riker at the end says, no, this wasn't just curiosity, the point is that he knows what curiosity looks like, not only in Starfleet and with their own philosophy, but in Data himself. He's like this living embodiment of a harmless, innocent being of curiosity versus what these aliens are. So if I'm going to try and give it a purpose in terms of like why make that comparison by the end, I think that's maybe why.
Yeah, I think that's about as good as we're going to get, because there's, again, pretty much the same lines I was going down with it, but it's a bit more of a stretch than we usually get on these sort of like side little beats. Yeah,
I mean, arguably maybe just like they need an extra minute and a half, and that this scene with Data and Geordi's that minute and a half, and it doesn't hurt the episode that much, so no biggie.
Yeah, that is the reality of network TV. Is it's you have to hit your time bang on, within 20-30 seconds.
Yeah, because one of the first things that goes wrong, actually, just because we sort of skipped over this part, is that they think there was a fire in like this in the cargo hold room that the problems manifesting, they think there's a fire and there's like 3 injuries and like people need medical attention. So Worf, Riker, like Crusher, like a whole team go up like getting ready to save people and deal with the crisis. And like there's like 3 guys just moving barrels around. Like, is there something wrong? What's going on?
Yeah.
Why are you looking at us?
Yeah, and later on, one of the wall panels kind of lights up a bit bright. It's like, there is something going on in here.
I think what I liked about that is that was just delightfully weird. It's just like, there's just a random bit of the ship that seems to be reacting as if something's going on.
Yeah. So I brought up Twin Peaks, but I think there is some kind of just strange elements that do play a little bit Lynchian in this one.
A smidge.
Just a smidge, but more than I expect from any Trek show.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And the design of the aliens was decent. They bug-like.
You don't see much of them. They're mostly like hooded.
The faces felt pretty detailed, and they were clicking with the noise, so it kind of at the very least
clicking. I think is memorable for me.
Yeah, at the very least it felt like it didn't feel like a static face, and I think that's the key thing you want to avoid. So
yeah, and I think ultimately like you compared it to the previous one with the mystery. The reality didn't quite live up to the mystery. I think in this case it definitely did.
Yeah.
Where, this at the end, it still felt creepy, if not even more so.
Yeah. So a really good episode. I quite like this one. I would probably go higher than the average rating on IMDb's sitting at, honestly.
I don't know what the average rating is, but I suspect if you're saying that, I probably would agree.
It's at 7.5, which is not bad, but okay.
No, I think this is comfortably above that.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, obviously, your mileage may vary as far as agreeing and disagreeing with IMDb average scores are, but anyway.
I know where the scale of IMDb ratings tends to sit, so compared to those, I think we would agree this should have been higher.
There you go. That is Schisms. I will tell you what's coming next time on the show. It's called True Q. So
we haven't had one of those in a while.
Yeah, we're getting a Q episode. So here's the description on IMDb. When an honor student in the medical field is assigned to the Enterprise in an internship manner, she begins to demonstrate powers of the Q, prompting you-know-who to show up.
Okay.
That sounds interesting.
I mean, honestly, it kind of doesn't matter what the description is for a Q episode, because I just expect, Q hijinks, and that's kind of enough to get me in. And all right, we'll go from there.
Aye. It's rated very similar to this episode, so reasonable chance of having a good time.
Yeah.
So, okay, please. I want to end with a little tease, actually, right? I wouldn't say what it is for people who don't want spoilers.
Oh, I suspect I may have seen some spoilers as to what this may be.
In terms of the character, I don't know how much you know about the specifics, though. I'll just say that my outro line that I've been jokingly using since season 2, because something in the Picard season 2 finale gave me a sense of where a certain character is going, shall we say. And my outro line has a whole new layer about it that makes it really funny to me now that I know something.
Okay. I know, I don't know the specifics of this appearance, but I know broad strokes of where the character goes, just because I happen to I haven't gone out of my way looking, but it's decades old Trek knowledge at this point. It kind of is just floating around out there. Sometimes you read something.
I mean, we can say it's Wesley because that's my outro line. Like, people know who I'm talking about.
I don't think that was a big secret at this point. Yeah,
but no, but just it felt like we were dodging the name for some reason. I wasn't trying to actively. It was just
No, I have seen in the past, like just things as to, okay, that's what they do with Wesley.
It's just really funny. Well, I mean, it was set up in season 1, to be fair. It's not like completely out.
No, it was. Yeah, it was.
But it's funny because it's recontextualized my outro line. It's also funny because cracking some jokes when they announced the season 3 cast of Picard, and it was like all the cast of Next Gen minus Will Wheaton. And I just think it's funny that Will Wheaton swooped in and had a cameo.
I did see an article where it was like, all the producers, like the individual producers of the various shows, were fighting about which one got to use him.
Oh dear, yeah. So I won't say too much, just in case for some reason you are going to watch Picard, dear viewer, but are waiting for whatever reason.
I heard your not specifically your reaction, but you were relatively positive in the mid-season, kind of going, yeah, it's kind of finding its groove. That does not seem to be the general consensus by the end of the season.
If I would describe the finale of Star Trek Picard season 2, and in many ways the last like 3 or 4 episodes, honestly, but especially
I'm sure there's probably a whole hour of you describing your feelings on this.
But especially the final episode, I would use the word I would use to describe it is pathetic.
Oh boy.
There's it's and the sad part is that this season 2 of Picard is meant to be kind of like, okay, this is the season where Q comes back and they're going to like sort of tie a bow on the Q Picard relationship. And the sad part is that the final point that it actually wants to make by the end of their time together in the finale, I actually really liked the idea, but everything else was trash. Everything else was dog shit.
So squandered that goodwill you had, yeah?
At this point, I'm getting into season 3, and there's like the mild hope because it's basically just going to be Next Gen season 8 that maybe. And the good thing is that we will be finished Next Gen by the time that airs, by and large. So, that should be good stuff, hopefully. But they have had a terrible season 1. They had a possibly leading to a decent fun season for like half of the season, and then just kind of started going down the shitter and ended in complete chaos. Like, you know how I hate prequel bollocks, where it'll like...
Oh, I know how much you hate it.
Yeah. There is an element of prequel bollocks
in the sequel show.
And the
time travel, yeah.
Yeah, it's time travel, yeah. In the finale, with a character in 2024 that made me burst out laughing and then ready to yell about it.
Oh boy.
I'll tell you after the video's done.
Yeah.
And much brighter news though, episode 1 of Strange New Worlds, promising.
I'm not surprised to hear that. It just based off of the cast, and I mean, like that, let's be honest, they were the best part of season 2 of Discovery, right?
Yeah, the funny thing is though, is it's promising, one, because it's not trying to be serialized, it's going for more of an episodic thing like classic Trek, so that's cool, it's different. It's actually refreshing now to have that. The main thing though is that in one episode of Strange New Worlds, it gave like the B sort of tier set of characters more personality and made them more memorable than 4 seasons of Discovery did for its like bridge crew. So, but by the end of episode 1 on Strange New Worlds, I was thinking, you know what, Nurse Chapel seems fun. This new young Uhura seems fun. Like I liked multiple characters outside of like, the core main group. So I
might have to check Strange New Worlds out because I feel like that appeals to me more than, well, it appealed to me more than Picard ever did, even before your damning reviews.
Oh dear. I mean, it may shit the bed. It's only been 1 episode. I can't vouch for too much of it, but episode 1 was promising.
I mean, let's be fair. That's the best start of any of the new shows.
Oh, it is, yeah. Because episode 1 of Picard wasn't that great, and episode 1 of Discovery was not that great. So, yeah. No, that's also true. So, you could find myself and Tara reviewing that on a weekly basis. First review is already up, and it's notable that Tara, who did not like Pike in Discovery,
really
also quite enjoyed the first episode and feels that it's scratching an itch. So
yeah, I feel like it's the sort of modern Trek show that I could really kind of enjoy if it kind of continues being what it seems like it was going to be.
Yes. So yeah, I thought I'd add in a little bit of modern Trek update as I'm on this journey going through old Trek, just to sort of.
I mean, we've had them every so often,
just to show people like where we are.
Your Guinan adventures.
Oh god, the finale made that even worse.
Oh wow.
Oh. Okay. Just slight bit on this. So
spoilers, I guess here, yeah.
Well, I don't have to really spoil too much. So if you remember the last time I brought this up, dear viewers, so it was confusing because of Time's Arrow, because they go back to 2024 in Picard, and Guinan doesn't recognize Picard. Yep. The excuse that was then given after this, which made kind of sense, is that because they are going back in time from an alternate future, Back to the Future 2 style, where the future's all messed up, and instead of the Federation, there's this evil Confederation. Because the Federation never existed, Picard, Data, and all that never went back in Time's Arrow because it didn't exist.
Okay, I
right?
can kind of buy that.
So yeah, okay, all right, I can kind of roll with that. When they go back, so they fix the timeline. They go back, right, and that's, I don't think it's a spoiler, right? They fix the timeline by the end.
They fix things. That,
yeah,
it's a right. story.
And they go back, and Picard talks to Guinan in the future again. She talks about remembering this visit to 2024, and I'm sitting going, but technically, surely the Time's Arrow visit also still happens now, so that's not the first time you met anymore. And I'm like, it was driving me mad. I was like, what are you doing? Surely this visit shouldn't have happened now if he's fixed the timeline.
Yeah, surely that happens in the other timeline. So she never had a visit in 2024 in this timeline.
But she sort of makes it sound, at least, like she does the same thing as Time's Arrow. I was like, yeah, I couldn't tell you too much. You had to make your own choices, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, before this, though, you wouldn't have known he went back to 2024 because it only happens because the timeline changed. It's a mess. It's a mess. It doesn't work. They put themselves in a stupid corner. Picard as a TV show is trash. Okay, I'm just going to say it. It's trash. It's trash for many reasons. This is one of the many reasons.
I have rarely felt so vindicated in choosing not to watch a TV show.
Oh, anyway, that is the episode. Thank you very much for joining us. You can support all the content over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. Of course, check out the Strange New Worlds review and so on. You can check out all 10 of the Picard Season 2 reviews if you want to. And
what you get progressively more miserable as it goes on. And
poor Tara tries to stick up for Trek no matter what, but even she in the last 2 episodes had to just kind of throw in the towel.
Oh, it's that bad.
And yeah, it's not a good time. So thank you once again for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And as it turns out, somewhere out there, Wesley Crusher actually is in complete control.